and jelly beans. This is Jewelry Jelly here with Lily, who is in her full Madoka cosplay tonight. I posted this to Instagram earlier, just wanted to show it off to everybody. After over a year, I managed to get all of the parts I needed together. The wig was the very last thing that I needed. Oh, my audio is a little quiet. Okay, let's see. Alright, let me just make sure. Audio's a little quiet. Okay, how's this now? I put the microphone a little bit closer to me. And let's see. Turn it up a little bit. Turn this up a little bit. Alright, how does that sound to you? So anyway, basically, there were a few things that I needed to bring everything together. The first was the wig, which I finally found on Bai a couple weeks ago. And then also some option hands. These are the paw hands from Volks for Mini Dolphy Dreams. They're just basically like an outstretched hand. It's paper, as in rock, paper, scissors. Also, Cubey. The Cubey is a fluffy puffy, and it is from, I found it at Miniso a couple weeks ago. It's still quiet to you? Oh, it's quiet for all of you? I wonder why. Let's see. And I got a 29-month resub from MJD82. Thank you very much. Let's see. I'm going to put this up a little bit and put the microphone up all the way. Now, how does this sound to everybody? Everybody? Can everybody actually hear me? Still playing around? Okay, game is perfect, but you are drowned out. Okay. You're getting better, but still faint. Now, am I still faint, or is the game faint? Let's see. Alright, does this sound any better? Can you hear me? Alright, how about this? A bit better? Okay. Alright, a little bit higher then? Okay, how about this? La-li-lu-lay-lo. I can hear you, but you are tinny. Are you sure you're set to the right mic? Yes, I am. Yeah, microphone, USB audio device. Okay, you guess it will have to do. Well, I mean, like, what's tinny? Like, can you actually hear me talking? Is there, like, a really, really bad amount of distortion? Am I just gonna have to replace this microphone after all? Let me try something else. Okay, I have switched my microphone to the Logitech StreamCam. How does that sound? Little better. Cleaner, okay. Maybe I do have to replace my microphone. Alright, okay, well, we're gonna start. So, last we played, a wedding was crashed. At least we hope it was a wedding. Rian. Tyrion! What? Celeste? Tyrion, I'm so sorry. I should have listened to you. I should have never left you alone with him. Hey, it's okay. Tears are streaming down her eyes. She was clearly worried about you. You try your best to comfort her as you look around the room. What happened? How long were you knocked out? As you look around you, you see several other people with you. Commander White is leading a group of knights. They all have their weapons drawn and pointed at someone. It's Prosecutor Steelwind! Commander, I understand your position, but there has to be another explanation. Look, Your Majesty, I get where you're coming from, but from what the witnesses have told us, it has to be a case of mage blight. You look around the room and see a pool of blood at the end of one of the tables. Celeste? Where's Pierce? Tyrion, I don't know how to tell you this, kid, but Garrick Pierce is dead. What? We're honestly surprised that you're okay. But who? You look at the knights, who all have their weapons pointed at the prosecutor. Wait a minute. You think Steelwind did this? It wasn't just Lord Pierce, Mr. Cuthbert. We also found the bodies of Lord Von Sanctus and Lady Sybil. Not to mention, a bunch of the Kingsguard have gone comatose. Comatose? I don't want to believe it, but several people saw Steelwind acting off at the scenes of each of the murders. We also found her unconscious here, and Pierce's body was lying next to her. No, it wasn't her! I saw Beatrice before I passed out! She was the one that knocked us out! Beatrice. What the hell is going on? Commander White, you need to put me in a holding cell. It needs to be one with an anti-magic field. What? I'm a danger to everyone here. We need to go now. What are you talking about? Now is not the time. Do it, Commander. Right. You watch as the Inquisition arrests Steelwind and escort her out of the room. Damn it! What happened? I know you have many questions, Mr. Cuthbert, but we should make sure that you're okay. Yeah, there's a necromancer in the nave. They have a point. together. There are 3 stained glass windows. They look quite nice. There are lanterns hanging around the room. They're still lit. There's a chalk outline where Pierce's body probably was. It looks like he was sitting against this altar when he died, and the blood stain seems to imply that the fatal wound came from his chest. An autopsy report would really be helpful here. You should ask the commander for a copy of it the next time you see him.
Prepario Arcanum!
There are traces of conjuration magic all over the room. That must have been left by Beatrice's sleep spell. Oh, there's a trace of transmutation here. It's all over the area around his body. Interesting. Did the murderer wound him using a transmutation spell? There's a trace of necromancy on the ground here. It's probably from when I tried to heal you. Anyways, it looks like you found everything you can here. You should move and take a closer look at the other crime scenes. It's just you, Celeste, and the statue. The horrible statue. I don't feel safe here. Why is that statue freaking you out so much? That Pegasus is literally a celestial like you. I don't know, but I can feel it suffering through the eye. It's an inanimate object, Tyrion. Let's move somewhere else. Alright, whatever it takes to get you to stop acting so weird. What goes through the mind of such a tortured creature? What is with you in this statue? I don't know, but I can feel its emotions as if they were my own. It's an inanimate object, Tyrion. It's wearing a birthday hat.
Prepario Arcanum!
You retrace your footsteps and find the common room. This was the last place you saw Von Sanctus and Sybil before everything happened. You look around and see that most of the room has been entirely scorched. You can still smell the scent of burnt cloth and flesh in the air. What happened here? Was there some kind of fire? Yeah, we think the perp lit a fire using magic. As you enter the room, Commander White approaches you. He seems to be accompanied by the typical Legion of Knights. Commander White. Hey kid, you investigating what happened too? Something like that. We just want to figure out what really happened. You and me both. Nothing about this case makes any damned sense. I'll be honest, I could really use your help in trying to figure this out. Honestly, you're not sure who you can trust at this point. But the commander is leading the investigation, and he's bound to have information that will be useful to you. This whole situation is a damned mess. Has the Inquisition found any clues to explain what happened? We only have the basic stuff so far, and we've only just received the autopsy reports. Alright, I'm just making sure that the captions are working, but it doesn't look like they are. Okay. Alright, so it doesn't look like captioning is working. Oh well. We only have the basic stuff so far, and we've only just received the autopsy reports. That's still pretty useful. Do you have copies of them? Sure, knock yourselves out. Autopsy report. Garrick Pierce has been added to your notes. Died at 2:45 p.m. in the prayer room. Cause of death was blood loss. A shard of frozen liquid was found stabbed through his heart. It is very likely that this was the murder weapon. The wound also shows heavy traces of transmutation magic, and traces of conjuration magic were found throughout the room. Poetic justice? Autopsy report. Coraline Sybil has been added to your notes. Died at 2:18 p.m. Cause of death was suffocation. Her body was found floating in a nearby lake outside of the Grand Cathedral. Traces of transmutation, evocation, and necromancy magic were found on the body. Autopsy report Lloyd von Sanctus has been added to your notes. Died at 2:05 p.m. The cause of death was suffocation. The fire in the common room burnt the body too much to discern any specific wounds he might have suffered. However, a small trace of evocation magic and a burn mark were found on the victim's left shoulder. This implies that the body was hit with a fire-based evocation spell. Traces of abjuration magic were found on and around the body. Wait, Pierce was killed with a frozen blade? Isn't that similar to how he killed Flintheart? Sorry, I didn't mean to. No, it's okay. It's still strange, though. Why would the murderer kill Pierce using such a convoluted method? There we go, there's the captions. If Steelwind really was affected by Mageblight, she wouldn't have done something like that. The murder of Garrick Pierce has been added to your notes. The Inquisition found a frozen blade impaling Garrick Pierce through his heart. There were traces of transmutation on his blood. This implies that the murderer used shape liquid to create this blade and murder him, which is oddly similar to how Pierce murdered Flintheart McCoy. But why would the murderer do this when they clearly had more lethal spells at their disposal? Pierce used this method using Flintheart's murder to leave as little evidence as possible. However, it's clear the murderer wanted to frame Arya and leave as much evidence as possible. Anyways, the times of death also seem to tell a story. If we look at the reports, the murderer must have killed von Sanctus, then Sybil, then Pierce, in that order. Yeah, that's our working theory too. If we look at this map, we can see where the prayer room and the common room are. Lady Sybil's body was found in the lake west of here, but since the Grand Cathedral was built on a cliff, there isn't an easy way to get there in such a short amount of time. So that raises my next question. How did Sybil's body end up in the lake? The murderer threw Sybil. The Grand Cathedral was built on a cliff over the lake, and the westward balcony just happens to be right over it. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. We even have a witness who saw Steelwind there. Really? Who was it? It was High Speaker Theon Archius. High Speaker? He's the shot caller of the Church of Bahamut, and he stands at the top of the religious hierarchy from what I hear. He spotted Steelwind near the west balcony and noticed that she was acting suspiciously. He called out to her, but she ignored him. So she knew that he saw her, but she didn't attack him? Yeah, he really lucked out. But if she was having a psychotic episode, he would have noticed that. From what you said, all she did was ignore him. You're right, this whole Mageblight story doesn't really add up. Either way, we'll just have to talk to him directly to find out more. Putting that aside, there's something else that's strange. What's that? It's about the order that the murders occurred in. What's strange about the order of the murders? The murderer killed von Sanctus, Sybil, and Pierce, in that order. This means that the murderer went to the common room, then the west balcony, and then finally the prayer room. But if we look at the map, the murderer's route seems a bit strange. Let's see here. The murderer must have passed right by the prayer room before they dumped Sybil's body. Why wouldn't they just murder Pierce on the way there? Maybe they wanted to dump Sybil's body first. Or they were afraid of fighting me. Aren't you giving yourself a little too much credit? No, she has a point. Out of everyone who fought the murderer, Celeste was the only one who didn't die or fall comatose. Anyways, there has to be a reason why the murderer deliberately chose that route. The murderer's route has been added to your notes. Judging from each time of death, the murderer went from the common room to the balcony and then to the prayer room, in that order, but that wasn't the most direct route. There has to be an explanation for that. Okay, you've created a rough outline of the murderer's actions, but the real clues will lie in how each of the individual murders occurred. And that starts with figuring out how Von Sanctus was murdered. There's a chalk outline in the center of the room. This must be where they found Von Sanctus's body. There's even bits of ash there. It must be the burnt fragments of the body. Even now, the sunlight is shining through the stained glass windows. It looks like the fire reached them before it was put out. There are scorch marks all over the room. The fire must have spread pretty far. Yeah, it was probably going for a while. No one even noticed it until Prince Alaric told the Kingsguard that he saw smoke. Interesting. We should speak with him and see if he saw anything else.
Repario Arcanum.
There are traces of evocation in a bunch of different spots around the room. We think the perp threw a bunch of fire-based evocation spells around to start the fire. And the Kingsguard used a bunch of water-based evocation spells to put it out before the fire spread. That makes sense. With that knowledge in mind, there's nothing out of the ordinary here. There's a trace of abjuration magic in the center of the room. Do the traces overlap with the body? Kind of. It's sort of square-shaped. Square-shaped? I can't see the traces, but there also seems to be a square-shaped outline around the body. You're right, they overlap perfectly. The area inside the square is a lot less burnt now that I look at it. I'm not sure what this means yet, but it's definitely worth taking note of. There are traces of abjuration magic that form a perfect square around the body. The area within the square seems far less burnt, too. How did the Inquisition find out about the murders, anyways? Did a witness come across the bodies? It all started when Prince Alaric ran up to us. He told us that he saw a fire breaking out in the common room. He also saw Steelwind there, but when he tried to talk to her, she hit him with some kind of spell. She attacked one of the princes? Yeah, but it didn't look like she hurt him. That guy from House Asclepius inspected him, and he told us he wasn't injured. I'm glad that he's okay, but wouldn't Arya have used a more violent spell if she was being affected by Mage Blight? It's possible she was throwing spells randomly, and he just happened to get really lucky. I suppose that's possible. But was there anyone else nearby when this happened? I would have expected a Prince of Wyverngard to be under constant guard. Yeah, that was kind of my mistake. I ordered the knights to give him some space considering what just happened. And that would be... Sorry, kid. If you don't know, it's not my place to tell you. I have orders from the top to stay quiet about that. And it looks like you'll need to ask someone higher up. It's still strange, though. Why were all these nobles gathered here? Anyways, whatever the perp hit him with, it only put him in a daze. He could barely walk or talk. He couldn't even approach us until the spell had worn off. And the weirdest about it all is that he was pretty close to where we are. But for some reason, we didn't find him until after the spell wore off. That must have been traumatic. I hope he's okay. But why didn't anyone see him during this time? After he told us about what was happening, we went to put out the fires. That's when we saw a bunch of guards knocked out outside the prayer room. Did you see me? No, this all happened around 3:10 p.m. Right, that was probably well after Steelwind moved into the prayer room. Celeste must have already followed her into it. The report. The Inquisition discovered something was wrong when Alaric de Wyverngard reported that a fire had broken out in the common room. He also told them that Arya Steelwind cast a spell on him earlier that severely debilitated his senses. When the Inquisition arrived at the scene, they spotted the unconscious guards outside the prayer room. They did not see Celeste McCoy and Arya Steelwind. This all happened at 3:10 p.m. When you arrested Steelwind, I recall you mentioning that a bunch of guards were comatose. Did the murderer use some kind of spell to knock them out? I don't think so, and I'm just as lost as you are about that. Some of the victims didn't have any magical traces on them, so we know that they're not under the effects of a spell, but they still haven't woken up. That's odd, to say the least. Is there any common thread between the knights who fell comatose? That might help us deduce what happened to them. Well, we found all of them at the locations where Steelwind was spotted. That can't be a coincidence. But he just admitted that they weren't being affected by any kind of spell. What's going on here? Several knights from the Kingsguard were found unconscious after the bodies were found. They have been unresponsive since the massacre, and due to a lack of magical traces, they are clearly not being affected by any kind of arcane spell. Commander White, you keep saying the perp instead of Steelwind, even though everyone else seems to think she was responsible for this. Do you also suspect that she's being framed? It just doesn't add up. If she did give herself Mage Blight, her actions wouldn't have been so deliberate. And she's definitely not the type of person to just go around murdering people. Even if she was. She's led a lot of the Inquisition's investigations recently. She's investigated plenty of homicides with us, and she knows exactly how we do things. Whoever did this got the job done, but they were sloppy about it. A bunch of witnesses saw her, and she didn't even try to hide herself using her magic. So either she had Mage Blight, which doesn't match with her behavior, or she did this intentionally and wanted to get caught. Neither scenario makes any damned sense. Someone has to be framing her. That's the only reasonable explanation. Honestly, I'm not so sure about that either. What do you mean? You saw her when we arrested her, didn't you? She wanted us to lock her up. It's like she thought she was a danger to herself and others. Right. That's the same impression I got as well. If it weren't for the witnesses' statements, I'd be sure she gave herself Mage Blight. The strangest thing is that I've never seen her that scared before. Something really rattled her about what happened. Did you follow up on what I said about Beatrice? I know she was in the room when Pierce and I fell unconscious. She has to be involved in this somehow. Well, she's already in prison, so we're already ahead on that account. But when we asked her what happened, she said that she couldn't remember anything. That's such an obvious lie. She has to be hiding something. Normally I'd agree with you, but she's not the only one with missing memories. Steelwind also can't remember anything. What? It looks like you'll have to speak with her about that. Anyways, what about Eris and that knight who was guarding her? Did they see anything? Sorry, kid, but Eris Illmater has been missing ever since everything went down. What? Do you have any idea what happened to her? No, but I wouldn't be too worried. What? A witness to the crime is missing and possibly hurt? Look, kid, you may be a hotshot attorney, but I've been in this business a lot longer than you have. Sometimes when these things happen to civilians, they get spooked and run away. I've seen it a million times. You feel like he's not making the biggest deal of this as he should be, but he might have a point. Eris is the daughter of a crime lord, after all. She might have gone into hiding to avoid having to speak with law enforcement. We don't have the resources to look for her, but I'm sure she'll turn up eventually. Well, I suppose we can't do anything about that now, but I still hope she's okay. Anyways, what about the knight guarding Beatrice? Surely he didn't go missing as well? That's the thing. The knight who was supposed to be watching her is one of the people who went comatose. We found him in front of the prayer room, too. Damn it. What happened to him? To make matters worse, that Frege chick knows how to cast invisibility. So even if she was telling the truth, very few people would have actually seen her. But her guard was in front of the prayer room. She must have brought him there somehow. You saw Beatrice Frege as you were losing consciousness. You only saw her for a brief moment, so it could have been an illusion. Regardless, that means she somehow entered the prayer room at 2:30 p.m. A knight was assigned to guard Beatrice and kill her if Maranoth attempted to escape. He was later found comatose in front of the prayer room. Eris Illmater, who was also with Beatrice when she disappeared, has been missing since the massacre. Anyways, would you happen to have a recent version of her spell compendium? Sure, we already have it on record. Beatrice Frege's spell compendium. It contains the formulas for the following spells: Familial Bond, Sleep, Mend Wounds, Send Message, Animate Corpse, Necrotic Blight, Shatter, Invisibility, Feign Death, and Illusory Disguise. So they're gonna go to describe all of the spells. So we got Familial Bond, which is the familiar spell. Mend Wounds, which is necromancy. Send Message. Animate Corpse. Necrotic Blight. Shatter. Invisibility. Occultari. Star A. Okay, feign death. The caster must target a creature that's already unconscious. Ooh. An illusory disguise. Right, I forgot how many spells she used during Lord Frigga's murder. It's all a little difficult to take in. I still can't believe it. After everything he did, Von Sanctus was just murdered. I'm surprised to hear that from you. Didn't he basically get away with offing Justin Way? The way I see it, he got what he deserved. That still doesn't sit right with me. No matter who the victims might have been, no one deserves to die like that. You're definitely a bigger man than I am. Anyways, Von Sanctus's autopsy report says that he died of suffocation. We think the murderer overpowered him and choked him with a rope or something. That hardly sounds like something someone would do during a cyclonic episode. Yeah, the more info I get, the more I think you might be onto something. But either way, the fire that the perp started in this room burnt his body. It didn't completely turn it to ash, but it was still pretty charred. So that fire would have burnt away any evidence of the minor wounds he had. Yeah, we're lucky we even discerned that he was hit with an evocation spell. Right, the autopsy report mentioned that too. But if a fire was started, is it possible that he died from smoke inhalation? No, the divination spell we use always identifies smoke inhalation as death by poisoning, not death by suffocation. I suppose that kind of makes sense. But it's still a shame we can't find out how the murderer suffocated him. We still know very little about how the murders occurred. Do you have records of each of the victims' spell compendiums? They might help us understand what each of the victims was doing during the attack. Sure, knock yourselves out. Garrick Pierce's spell compendium. It contains the formulas for the following spells: Prestidigitation, Conjure Light, Conjure Water, Frost Wave, and Shape Liquid. Coraline Sibyl's spell compendium. It contains the formulas for the following spells: Slow Fall, Foresight, Strike True, Detect Magic, Stone Skin, and Mend Wounds. Stone Skin? Oh! I wonder if that Pegasus statue is actually a Pegasus that's been turned to stone. Lloyd Von Sanctus's spell compendium. It contains the formulas for the following spells: Mage Blade, Force Cage, Send Message, and Mend Wounds. Okay, so this is just describing the various spells. Okay, Force Cage. For the duration, the caster creates a magical 10 by 10 by 10 foot cube around a target within 30 feet of them. The walls of this cube are impenetrable and can't be destroyed by anything, not even by spells that can normally dispel not even by spells that can normally dispel spell effects. Furthermore, any attempts to magically teleport into or out of the cube will fail. If there is more than one creature in the target space, they will be pushed away from the center of the cube. Ooh, so we've got a cube spell, and the walls are impenetrable. Ooh, I think we found where the suffocation comes from. Mage Blade. Slow Fall. Foresight. Strike True. Detect Magic. While concentrating, the caster can see the normally invisible magical traces left by magic. Magical traces are created 2 times when a spell is cast. The first is created at the position of the caster when the spell is cast. The second is created when the spell effect resolves or dissipates. The caster can identify the school of magic with any trace by color. Okay, wow. That's a lot to work through. Yep, this is what happens when a bunch of mages are caught in the middle of a murder. Honestly, you've been lucky until now. Nevertheless, I'll need to look over each of these spells when they become relevant. You think you've found everything you can relating to Von Sanctus's murder. Perhaps you should move somewhere else. Okay, let's go to the west balcony. You arrive at the west-facing balcony of the cathedral. Supposedly, this is where the murderer threw Sybil's body into the lake. Oh, hello there. As you inspect the area, you catch the attention of an old man nearby. From his garb, he appears to be someone who works at the cathedral. I don't believe we met before. What are you doing here? Sorry for the intrusion. I'm Tyrion Cuthbert, and this is my bodyguard, Celeste McCoy. We're investigating the murders on behalf of Prosecutor Steelwind. Tyrion Cuthbert, I have heard of you. He doesn't look nearly as criminal as I expected him to be. Judging from his thoughts, he probably hasn't heard many good things about you. But forgive my rudeness, I am Theon Arceus, High Speaker of the Church of Bahamut. So you're the one who saw Steelwind here during the murders. Do you mind if we ask you some questions? He scans you warily. I suppose there would be no harm in that. Let's see. I can see a military stronghold in the distance. They must be able to see a lot from that high up. There's some sort of debris on the ground. You pick up one of the pieces and feel it in your hands. It appears to be some kind of gravel. This balcony provides a perfect view of Lake Galacroft. A lot of people probably come here when Grand Cathedral is open to the public.
Repario Arcanum.
There are traces of transmutation on the pieces of this debris. That would imply that a spell specifically targeted or created whatever this came from. But I doubt someone created these bits of gravel. It must have broken off from something else. You found some bits of Earth-like debris near the westward balcony. They have traces of transmutation magic on them. This also happens to be where Theon Arceus saw Arya Steelwind dumping Coraline Sybil's body. We heard that you saw the prosecutor acting strangely here. Could you tell us more about what you saw? Did it look like she was having a psychotic episode? I wouldn't go that far, but she was certainly acting strangely. How did you come across her? Well, I was on my way to the prayer room. I always recite prayers from the draconic texts around that time. Wait, he was heading to the prayer room? When I saw her, I first thought she was just enjoying the view of the lake. I was about to greet her, but when I approached her, I saw that she was throwing something off of the edge of the balcony. You must have seen her dumping Sybil's body. You're probably correct. I came to the same conclusion after they found that poor woman's body below us. Although, what is it? I only saw it for a second, but so perhaps I'm wrong. But Lady Sybil was wearing much brighter colors this morning. Whatever Lady Steelwind threw into the lake, it looked much darker. What does that mean? I'm sorry, I can't really explain it. Perhaps I was just seeing things. My eyes aren't as good as they used to be, after all. It could have just been a trick of the light. Theon Arceus was on his way to the prayer room to recite his prayers. On his way there, he spotted Arya Steelwind throwing something off of the west balcony. He wasn't able to see what she threw, but after Coraline Sybil's body was found in Lake Galcarond, he assumed that the object must have been Sybil's body. However, he could have sworn that she saw something darker, but he's still not sure. Yeah, Stone Skin could probably do it, but I'm also seeing those little shards of gravel there, and I'm wondering if maybe a Stone Skin was applied to, like, an ice blade or something? Wait, if you saw Arya dumping Lady Sybil's body, she must have just murdered her. That means you must have been headed to where we were at the time. Oh, were you praying there with Lord Pierce? Not exactly. What? That's not what the guards told me. The guards? Do you mean the ones standing watch outside the prayer room? Yes, they told me that Pierce was praying with some acquaintances of his. They said the same thing to Lady Steelwind as well. Wait, Steelwind was there too? Yes, she appeared to be waiting for something. But anyways, I didn't want to disturb them, so I went back to my quarters to pray there. The High Speaker didn't see her fighting Celeste. She must have started her attack after he left. But why would she bother waiting? Either way, we can't exactly question those guards. Yeah, they're still comatose after the attack. Okay, so it's an update to Arceus' testimony. After witnessing this, he attempted to enter the prayer room but was turned away by the knights guarding it. Actually, the High Speaker's quarters aren't that far away from the prayer room. How did you not hear anything? Ah, it must have been because of the magical wards in my room. Magical wards? Are they there for security reasons? Not exactly. I actually suffer from chronic insomnia. Even the smallest sound will wake me up at night. Years ago, I had some mages enchant the walls so sound couldn't travel through them. I can't hear anything from outside the room once I shut my door. That does sound awfully convenient, but you doubt that he'd lie about something the user could so easily verify. Either way, you should make a note of this. Soundproof room. Supposedly, Theon Arceus suffers from chronic insomnia and can be woken by even the smallest sound. As such, the walls of the High Speaker's quarters are completely soundproof once he closes the door. This should explain why Arceus didn't hear the fight between Celeste McCoy and Arya Steelwind. You believe that you've found everything you can hear. Perhaps you should move somewhere else. You arrive back at the cathedral's garden and come across that cursed statue again. It's staring into my soul. Then stop looking at it! As you move your attention away from the grotesque sculpture, you spot the Crown Prince. He's sitting on a bench, guarded by some knights from the Kingsguard. His brow is furrowed, and he seems to be deep in thought. Oh, Mr. Cuthbert, and Ms. McCoy, too. What are you still doing here? We're trying to investigate what happened. We were looking around when we just happened to find you here. I see. Are you okay? Yes, I was just thinking about how unfortunate this ordeal has been. I do hope Miss Steelwind is taking this well. Right. She is his fiancée, after all. He must be extremely worried about her. We're trying to find out what exactly happened. Do you mind if we ask you some questions? I see. Well, I'll do whatever I can to help. What goes through the mind of such a tortured creature? What is with you and this statue? I don't know, but I can feel its emotions as if they were my own. It's an inanimate object, Tyrion!
Repario Arcanum!
Well, there's no magic here. You said that you two were investigating the murders. You weren't planning to defend Miss Steelwind, were you? If she would have me. She may be a competent prosecutor, but I have far more experience defending clients. Unfortunately, I think the situation is more complicated than that. What do you mean? Several house leaders died today. We can't release this information to the public. Not after the news of William Frega's death has already spread. In the course of 2 months, we've lost not one, but 3 members of the Pillar families. But the trial has to happen soon, or else the magical traces left will disappear. From what I've heard, we will be holding a trial, but it will be handled privately and internally. And I'm sorry to say that, you won't be permitted to serve in such a trial. Right. The majority of the nobility hates me after all. You wouldn't be able to pull some strings, would you, Aster? I'm sorry. I'd like nothing more than to give you the opportunity to represent her, but I clearly have a personal attachment to this case. If I try to tip the trial in her favor, it will only harm her chances more. Right. I see what you mean, but even if we can't help her during the trial, we can still investigate the crimes on her behalf. Yes, I would really appreciate that. If new evidence is found, perhaps we can exonerate Miss Steelwind of the charges against her. After everything that's happened, I really need to know, why were so many nobles gathered in one place anyways? All 4 of the Pillar families were present. I understand if you don't want to tell me, but this information could be vital in figuring out what really happened.
No, I see your point. The truth is, we all gathered to mourn the death of my father, King Olivier de Wyverngard IX. Oh! It was a funeral rather than a wedding. Wait, the king is dead? Yes. We wanted to avoid releasing this information to the public so close to the death of William Frege. My father has been ill for quite some time, so we were prepared for this. Or at least, I thought I was. I also lost my mother when I was quite young, but it's still all a little hard to take in. I'm sorry, you have my condolences. Thank you. But if King Olivier is dead, that would make you... Yes, you currently stand before King Aster de Wyverngard, ruler of our kingdom. Oh, he's so sad about it. Considering everything that's happened, he seems less than thrilled about that. I suppose that explains why all of these nobles were gathered. They came under the guise of paying their respects, but it's clear they all wanted to get closer to the new King of Wyverngard. I think the Freges were the only ones who genuinely came to give their condolences. Speaking of the Freges, I think you need to know. I saw Beatrice before I was knocked out. I think she may have been the one that killed Garrick Pierce. Why would she be there? I'm sorry. I know she's your friend, but we already know she's not above committing murder. I see. I suppose if you're saying it must be so. But what possible reason would she have to be involved in something like this? I'm not sure yet, but I plan to find that out. By the way, where were you during the murders? I remember you left with Steelwind when Celeste and I arrived at the cathedral. Ah, yes. Steelwind and I left to speak with High Speaker Arceus in his quarters. What was your meeting about? It was actually about our wedding. Yep, called it! With my father's death, Lord Steelwind wanted to finally make our union official. Oh! I would congratulate you two, but considering the circumstances, I understand. And I appreciate your words nonetheless. Anyways, how long did this meeting last? I believe we spoke with him until 1:40 p.m. But Von Sanctus died at 2:05 p.m. That means that she began her rampage less than half an hour before that. Excuse me, less than half an hour after that meeting. Was there anything off about her behavior? Now that you mention it, something about her demeanor changed. We were speaking of the wedding when she abruptly left. I asked her where she was going, but she ignored me. That sounds similar to what happened when Celeste fought her. There's no way she was affected by Mage Blight. From 1:15 to 1:40 p.m., Aster de Wyverngard and Arya Steelwind spoke with High Speaker Theon Arceus about their upcoming wedding. At 1:40 p.m., Steelwind abruptly left the meeting and didn't answer Aster when asked where she was going. I honestly didn't think much of it at the time. I'm quite used to her giving me the cold shoulder. Right. It's possible that the Steelwind the witnesses saw wasn't actually real. Does that mean the Steelwind that attended the meeting was also a fake? Anyways, what happened after your meeting with the High Speaker? Did you see Steelwind after that? Actually, I found myself caught up in something else entirely. At 2 p.m., I went to pay my respects at my father's coffin. But apparently, someone had set a magical trap there. What? It was a glyph of contingency. Glyph of contingency. When casting the spell, the caster must choose another spell they know. The caster casts that spell, but the contingent spell doesn't come into effect. Instead, it takes effect when a certain condition, specified by the caster upon casting the spell, is fulfilled. The contingent spell takes effect immediately when that condition is fulfilled. I have heard of that spell. It's like a trap that you can set, and you can infuse any spell into it. But it requires a second contingent spell to place that trap. Which spell was it? It was a force cage, targeting me. Was the murderer trying to attack Aster too? I don't think so. They would have used a more lethal spell if they wanted to. But from the sounds of it, force cage can't be dispelled. So Aster would have been trapped inside of it for that full hour. We think the murderer used this as a distraction. Because of that trap, the Kingsguard consolidated most of their attention and forces on my location. As a result, there were fewer people guarding Von Sanctus, Sybil, and Pierce. And the ones that were there all fell comatose. They can't tell us what happened to them. At 2:00 p.m., Astor de Wyverngard went to pay his respects at his father's coffin. Unbeknownst to him, however, there was a glyph of contingency set to trap him inside a force cage. The trap triggered and Astor was trapped in that magical cage for its duration. This caused the Kingsguard to consolidate their forces at Astor's location. As a result, Lloyd Von Sanctus, Coraline Sybil, and Garrett Pierce were left with far fewer guards defending them. And yet another inexplicable event is added to the list. After everything you've learned, you highly doubt that Steelman was affected by Magepoint. So someone must be behind what happened. But who? Anyways, it seems he's told you everything he knows. He probably didn't witness much after he was trapped by that force cage. You should move somewhere else and follow your other leads. Okay, so the last place that we need to go to, let's see. We'll go to the nave and see if there's any other places we need to look. She attacked a member of the royal family and killed several nobles!
What else is there to investigate? The laws are clear about what we must do. We should execute her immediately.
Alaric, this situation is of far too much import to make such rash decisions. We need to approach this calmly and carefully. As you return to the nave, you spot the young prince in an argument with that nobleman you saw earlier. Now that you think of it, you still have no idea who he is.
Oh, it's you two.
Your Highness. And I don't think we've been introduced. What?
I see you're still as insolvent as ever. You stand before Sir Remus Virgile, Archduke and Royal Visor to the Wyverngard throne.
I believe he means advisor. Archduke? You didn't even know the Kingdom of Wyvern had a title like that. Why haven't you ever heard of him before? Why are you two still here anyways? I thought the cathedral was closed for the investigation. We're investigating what happened on behalf of Prosecutor Stillman. I see. Anyways, I have much to attend to. I'll be taking my leave. You sense a tinge of anxiety. Is he avoiding you? Actually, since we have you here, we have some questions for you. The both of you.
Huh, you should know your place, knave.
Your Grace, where were you when the murders took place?
Just what are you trying to insinuate?
Please, Alaric, there's no need for that. To answer your question, I was speaking with Lady Freydis Familiar. Tracker? No, it was the demon who calls himself Mariner. What? Why did you want to speak with him? He was actually the one that sent me. According to him, he had some information that was of great import to me. You didn't make a contract with him, did you? Of course not. What kind of desperate fool do you take me for? No, he gave me the information he had freely. But why would he do that? Demons are supposedly always trying to trick humans into making deals with them. Looking back, it must have been a distraction. What a fool I was. I knew he was playing with me. But I knew he couldn't tell lies, and the information he had was too important to ignore. If you don't mind me asking, what was the information about? I'm sorry, but I can't reveal what he told me. It could endanger people that I care about. But rest assured, I doubt it has anything to do with the massacre. Your Grace, we've only just met. I can't exactly just take your word for it. I suppose that's fair. But believe me when I say that I plan to take this information to my grave. That's obvious, but he's clearly intent on keeping their conversation a secret. Anyways, several members of the Kingsguard were watching us. They can verify my alibi. How long did this conversation last? I arrived to speak with him at 1:50 p.m., and I didn't leave until 10 p.m. The demon Marinov called Archduke Remus Virgile to meet with him at 1:15 p.m. He apparently had very important information that Virgile couldn't ignore. Virgile spoke with Marinov until 3:10 p.m. The members of the Kingsguard guarding the demon can verify this. So he was accounted for during the time frame of the murders. But why would Marinov go to the trouble of distracting him in the first place? Whoever orchestrated this also used a force cage to trap Astor. Were they trying to distract the forces in the cathedral? way of trying to keep certain people out of the crossfire. Either way, it's clear that Beatrice has a lot to answer for. Your Highness, we heard the prosecutor cast a spell on you when you saw the fire in the common room. Can you tell us more about what happened?
I can't believe she attacked a member of the royal family. She was completely irresponsible with her magic.
I understand your feelings about this, but we can't say for certain that she inflicted mage blade on herself. We don't even know if it was actually her.
I saw her with my own eyes. Plenty of other people did too.
Either way, where did this happen?
It was on the path outside the common room. I saw smoke coming from the building, and I saw Stillwind walking away from it.
So this must have been after she murdered Von Suckus. I have a feeling I already know the answer, but was she behaving erratically?
No! She very deliberately cast a spell on me.
Which one, again, implies that Mage Blight wasn't behind this. Do you know which spell she cast on you?
I'm not sure. I've never been affected by a spell like that before.
From the magical traces on him, we know there was a transmutation spell. Transmutation spells manipulate and change physical matter. It's scary to think about what that might do to a human body. Are you sure he's okay? Lord Asclepius inspected him, and he doesn't appear to have any lasting injuries. We're hoping the spell's effects were only temporary. Can you describe what you felt while you were affected by it? That might help us identify which spell it was.
Well, I was extremely dazed. My ears were ringing. My vision was also partially blurred, as if my mind was in some sort of fog. Whenever I tried to speak, I couldn't even form words with my mouth. I could only make grunting sounds. I couldn't walk either, so I had to crawl on the floor.
I'm sorry you had to go through that. That must have been traumatic. What kind of transmutation spell would do that to him? It had to be something that affected his senses. You already told us that she wasn't acting erratically, but was there anything off about her demeanor?
I only saw her for a moment, but she was definitely different than usual. She was completely emotionless.
Yeah, that's exactly what she was like when I fought her, too.
It's like she was an arcane construct. Her movements were almost robotic.
Wait, are there any arcane constructs on cathedral grounds? No, not for lack of trying, on Lord Von Sanctus's part. The High Speaker and I have specifically forbidden the staff here from using them. It would be really convenient if all of this was done using construct. Although, you are a little tired of seeing them in your cases. Anyways, was anyone else around when Stillwind cast that transmutation spell on you?
No, she moved away quickly after she incapacitated me. And even if someone was around, I don't think I could have seen them anyways.
Alaric de Wyverngard saw Hardy Stillwind exiting the common. He saw that a fire had started there, but when he asked Stillwind what was going on, she cast a transmutation spell on him. This spell blurred his vision for days. His ears were ringing, and he was unable to speak or walk properly. He could only move by crawling on the ground. Strangely, no one saw him while he was in the suit. Commander White also said that he was surprised no one saw the prince until after that spell wore off. What happened to him? That covers Alaric's account of what happened. And we even got the Archduke's statement, too. But there's still one last person we need to speak to. Ariane. She and Beatrice supposedly have no memories of what happened. If it were only Beatrice saying that, I'd probably doubt it. But if Steelwind also doesn't have any memories, it becomes a lot more credible. She definitely has the missing piece we need to put this together. Are you going to the dungeon to speak with her? I am. Wonderful. I'll be accompanying you. What? As the royal advisor, I have a vested interest in the investigation. While I trust Lucio to leave no stone unturned, I hear you have quite the talent for seeing what the crown cannot. Well, it's not as if you have the authority to stop him, but you still don't know him very well. You'll need to be wary of what you say in front of him. There are rows upon rows of seats for worshippers to sit at. At full capacity, this room could probably host thousands of people at a time. It's a stained glass window. A small ray of sunlight is shining through.
Prepario Arcanum!
No traces of magic here. What can you tell me about this?
Pondering such things is beneath someone of my stature.
He could have just said he has nothing to say. Alright, so we're moving to the dungeon. You arrive at the dungeon and see the prosecutor sitting in a holding cell. She seems extremely stressed. It's as if she's trying to figure something out. Mr. Cuthbert, and your grace. Steelwind gives a wary look to the Archduke. How are you doing? As best as I can, all things considered. What brings you here? We're trying to investigate everything that happened. I see. I was wondering if you could answer some of our questions. Steelwind, I know your situation is pretty grim right now, but you know you can trust me. You're not the person I'm worried about. At this moment, I don't even know if I can trust myself. What? We heard that you don't have any memories of what happened. Is that true? It is. No matter how much I try, I can't recall anything. What is the last thing you remember? I believe I was leaving my meeting with the High Speaker and His Majesty. After the meeting, I was planning to return to the nave to speak with my father, but I suddenly felt extremely nauseous. I thought some fresh air might help me feel better, so I went to the balcony. The one over the big Galacron. Yes, that one. The last thing I remember was losing consciousness as I looked at Blake. And did you cast any magic before this happened? No, I didn't. Are you sure you don't remember anything after that? I don't. All I remember is waking up to the sound of someone sobbing. It was Celeste. She was crying over your unconscious body, Mr. Cuthbert. Arya Steelwind has no memories of what happened after she left her meeting with Theon Archius and Aster de Wyvernguard. After she left the meeting, she began heading to the nave to meet with her father. However, she suddenly felt nauseous and went to the westward balcony. She lost consciousness soon after. She later regained consciousness in the prayer room when she heard Celeste McCoy crying over your unconscious body. She did not cast any magic before she fell unconscious. I feel like we've completely ruled out Mage Mind, so I doubt that's why you can't remember anything. Are there any spells that can specifically modify or destroy people's memories? It would certainly explain a lot of this. No. Arcane spells can only affect the physical world. But throughout history, mages have attempted to develop spells that can affect the mind. There's no recorded history of any of them succeeding. But you're assuming that arcane spells are the only type of magic that exists. What? I think you've observed it already. There are magical creatures in this world that don't use arcane magic. Isn't that right, Mr. Cuthbert? What? Does he know about the Eye of Horus? I'm not sure what you're trying to imply. Don't take me for a fool. Several of my associates attended Frank's trial, and they all heard what that demon referred to as Heaven's Hope. If I learned that Lumina had anything to do with this, Your Grace, I'm not an agent of the theocracy. And even if what you're saying is true, I wasn't the one who manipulated Steelwind's memories. But I suppose you raise a good point. If something affected Steelwind's memories, it wasn't necessarily an arcane spell. In fact, it couldn't have been an arcane spell. It was definitely something else. You're probably right, which proves that I'm responsible for the murders. What? You just said that you don't have any memories of what happened. Why are you so convinced that you're responsible for this? I told the Inquisition already. I saw Beatrice before I passed out. She's clearly involved in this somehow. There's more to this than you realize, Mr. Cuthbert. For the past few months, the Inquisition and I have been investigating a string of seemingly unrelated murders. During each of those cases, we were able to apprehend the perpetrator without issue, but there was always something off about them during questioning. The murders were always abnormally gruesome and passionate, and each of the perpetrators said the same thing. They all said that they had no choice. No choice? Cases like this have been occurring throughout Wyvernguard, and very little connects the perpetrators to each other. All except one thing. Each of them acted as as if someone had controlled them against their will. They were probably just desperate. Most murderers try to make excuses after they're caught. They could have even just been in complete denial. Or instead the same thing, but these cases are far too similar for me to ignore. I wondered if they were telling the truth. Perhaps each of these murders was committed by an unknown party. I didn't have any concrete evidence, but I knew I was getting closer to something. Steelwind, I don't mean to be rude, but this sounds completely insane. You don't even have any physical evidence to prove these murders are connected. There's one piece of evidence, but it's hardly concrete. But it does tie each of these cases together. She takes out a small parchment from her pocket and shows it to you. It's a purple symbol. Several of the people we arrested had an item with this symbol on it. Oh, I remember now. It was carved into the headmaster's desk. And Arya, basically, she confronted him in prison, and that's when Eris killed him. None of them could remember where it came from, or even what it was. But they all somehow knew that it was called the Purple Mark. But there has to be an explanation for this. It could just be some esoteric superstition that we don't know about. If that's true, then ask yourself one thing. Where did I get this parchment from? You don't mean I found it in my pocket after I was properly confined. Whoever I've been chasing must have left it there to taunt me. For all I know, they could have controlled my body and forced me to draw the symbol myself. Either way, this all but proves the massacre at the cathedral is related to me. The purple mark. It's some sort of strange symbol. Arya Steelman calls it the purple mark. She thinks it has some relation to her mind control conspiracy. Supposedly, this mark has been found at the scenes of several gruesome murders throughout Wyverngard. Arya felt she was getting close to the truth. When she regained consciousness after the massacre, she found a paper with a symbol in her pocket. I don't want to dismiss what you said, but this definitely won't hold up in court. Nor should it. If my mind has been compromised, I can't take the risk of leaving this dungeon. Otherwise, I could end up harming more people. Wait, are you planning to spend the rest of your life in prison? If that is what is necessary to keep everyone safe. But what about Aster? Weren't you two supposed to be married soon? He's the king now, and you can't rule Wyverngard alongside him from a holding cell. You're correct. He has always been a remarkable person. He should have no problem finding another suitress. You feel an overwhelming sadness emanating from her, she says now. No. What? You're not going to sacrifice everything for someone else's actions. Mr. Cuthbert, I am not going to risk more lives. If I were to hurt His Majesty, I would never be able to forgive myself. Please don't ask that of me. Steelwind is going to throw away everything she cares about for the greater good. Even if she was the one who did all this, she's not the one who's responsible. You can't let her resign herself to a fate like this. Steelwind, are you seriously just going to throw your life away? Steelwind asks for the greater good of the kingdom, regardless of the amount of suffering she must endure during so. She's deeply in love with Aster and will do anything to protect him. However, she's still a rational person and will be receptive to logical arguments. If it were necessary, I would give my life for this kingdom. If someone controlled my actions today, they can and will do so again. A villain controlled my mind. And as long as that possibility exists, I can't trust myself. But that's assuming this person can continue to do so. You said so yourself. You haven't found any evidence to prove your theory. We don't know how this mind control works, and we don't have enough information. We can't just drop this without finding out what really happened. I suppose you're right. I doubt there was any clue to this. The person responsible is just a sadistic killer. I've been investigating these murders for months, and I've never been able to find any personal clues as to who the perpetrator is. There's no way to connect them to this. Whoever did this was a sadistic individual who wanted to cause as much suffering as possible. Yes, the perpetrator wasn't as nearly as aimless as you think. And this proves it. My apologies, Mr. Cuthbert, but I don't really see how that proves your claim. That's not true, Steelwood. Whoever did this had very specific targets in mind. Both Prince Alaric and the High Speaker saw you when murders were being committed. Not to mention, they set a trap for Aster. What? Let's assume that someone was controlling you. They wouldn't have left Alaric, Archius, or Aster alive if they were trying to kill as many people as possible. I suppose you have a point there. But even so, that hardly narrows things down. If someone was controlling me, they wouldn't need to enter the cathedral to use me. The perpetrator didn't need to enter the cathedral to commit murders. Perhaps you're right, and the perpetrator only wanted to murder the 3 victims. There's plenty of people who might want to see us every day. There's one thing you're overlooking. Before the murder started, someone trapped Aster within a force cage using Glyph of Contingency. But they didn't harm him. It was probably just a distraction. Even so, this gives us 2 very important clues. The first is that whoever did this is capable of casting those 2 spells. This means that the perpetrator was a mage. That's true. But the second clue is the most important one. Whoever set that trap for Aster, they did so within 24 hours of the trigger. This means that the perpetrator must have been someone who attended the funeral. So it was one of them. That narrows down our list of suspects substantially. There's a chance we can identify who did this. And if they really did control our actions, we can find a way to prevent them from doing so again. Steelwood, you need to fight this. I can't. What? Why not? Fighting this will put people in danger. If we pursue an individual like this, they might retaliate even more than they already have. They wanted to remove me from my position. How will they react if I try to resist? They might hurt even more people to send a message. It's far too dangerous. We can't back down in the face of injustice. If we let the perpetrator get away with this, we're letting them know that their actions will go unanswered. You need to be strong and fight this, Steelwood, no matter the cost. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one putting your loved ones in danger. Whoever did this had a goal far bigger than you, and you have no guarantee that it'll stop here. 3 nobles died today, and 2 of them are near the top of the political hierarchy. What if they decide to go after more victims? Who will they target next? Your father? The king? We need to catch them before they can do more harm. I know you're frightened about what might happen to the people close to you, but we can't let someone that dangerous get away with this. When you put it that way, I suppose I have no other choice, do I never realized it before, Mr. Cuthbert. What? You really have a bad habit of butting your nose into other people's business, don't Celeste is already taken to doing that. But since you'll be defending me, you'll probably need this. Arya Steelwind's spell companion. It contains the formulas for the following spells: Mend Wounds, Firebolt, Shape Liquid, Dispel Magic, Steelwind Strike, Detect Magic, Polymorph, and Hold Creature. Okay, so Firebolt, the caster launches a fiery projectile. Hold Creature, the caster completely restricts the movement of the target. The caster strikes targets of their choice with a slashing force. Caster transforms the target within 30 feet of them into an animal. Spell magic. Then it's settled. We will hold the trial in my home, the city of Latin. Latin? I've never heard that place. Speak with Lucian. He knows the location well. Before you can ask any more questions, the Archduke leaves rather. He really has a bad habit of just walking away from conversations. But I guess we should consider ourselves lucky. Even if it's unorthodox, the situation will let us approach this one while we get out of the trial. You had no idea what you were in for when you agreed to this. And what proceeded next would be unlike any trial you've ever been in. But even so, you persevered, as you've always done, in the name of justice, regardless of what you'd have to sacrifice to do so. Okay, so we are going to move on to the next part. Tyrion, we're definitely lost. You followed Lord Steelwind's directions to the letter, but it appears you found yourself in the ruins of an old city, rather than the estate of the Archduke. You think you know what might be up with my audio? What is it? Do you have 2 mics recording? I only have 1 mic active. I do have a mic in my camera, but I usually turn that off. And then I have my regular desktop mic. One second. I'm muted. No, I'm not. I don't understand. This should be the place. The map even has that giant tree north of here. This can't be the city of Ladon that Virgil mentioned. It doesn't look like anyone's lived here in centuries. But Lord Steelwind's directions were pretty straightforward. So why are we... Wait a minute. Did he give us the wrong location on purpose? Please, what kind of dishonorable cretin do you take me for? Lord Steelwind, what are you two standing around here for? The trial will be started shortly. He's not alone either. He's flanked by a division of the Kingsguard and Arya. But it's difficult to tell if they're escorting her or keeping watch over her. You can see one of the knights channeling a spell over her. It must be an anti-magic field. Even now, she must still be wary about someone taking control of her mind. Wait, this is where we'll be hosting the trial? Yes. The Archduke has always been sentimental about this place. And I doubt a normal court would have enough space. What? I really don't know what possessed him to trust you. It's a miracle he's even taking part in this at all. But nevertheless, let's not keep him waiting. Before you can ask him to elaborate, he walks past you and heads towards one of the central buildings. It's completely dilapidated. You're a little worried it might collapse on you while you're in it. You look at the prosecutor and raise an eyebrow. But she merely shakes her head. It's clear she's just as lost as you are. Alright, I guess we're doing this. The ruins are filled with everyone who's at the random, and they all seem to be just as outwardly as you. The only person who seems to be unfazed by this entire situation is Lord Steelwind. He's taken his position at the opposite of the room. It seems that he truly plans on prosecuting his daughter. Thank you all for coming here today. I appreciate your cooperation with our investigation. Why have you brought us here? This place is filthy. It's crawling with insects and vermin. My apologies, but what happens here today must be kept under wraps for now. I had to choose a location that was away from modern civilization. But nevertheless, I welcome you all to my home. Wait, you live here? I do. Your Grace, I know you wouldn't bring us here unless you were completely certain. But I want to ask you one last time, is this truly what you wish to do? There will be no going back after this. What? I've made many mistakes in my lifetime. I gave Wyvern Guard the means to protect themselves, but all it did was warp them into something monstrous. I grew bitter seeing what I created, so I isolated myself from my people. I thought my best course of action would be to stay in seclusion and leave Wyvern Guard to fend for themselves. I see now what a fool I was. I abandoned my kin to survive in an unjust world. And now foreign powers have ingrained themselves in my kingdom, all because of my negligence. Foreign powers? Does he still suspect that you're an agent of the theocracy? Well, no more. It's time that the people of Wyvern Guard and their enemies remember who watches over them. As he raises his hand, magic begins to swirl around him. What's going on? The entire room is violently shaking. Whatever he's casting, it's unlike any magic you've ever seen before. A blinding light envelops him, but you can faintly see his form changing. It's expanding. And from it, wait, is that? What? It's Dragon! As the Archduke assumes his true form, the gallery breaks out into hysteria. Some of them will reference to the ancient dragon, and some of them cower in absolute terror. You can even see some of them attempt to flee before they're stopped. Enough! This may not be a court, but I will have order. You're an ancient dragon? No, you're the last ancient dragon. That is correct, Townsend. I am the Lord of all lords. You all stand before Rathallan, the Scale Lord. Remus Virgile is alias I assume when I walk amongst your kind. But make no mistake, even in my human form, I have always had the strength of an ancient dragon. Until now, only the lords of House Steelwood and the kings of Wyvern Guard have known my true identity. But I will hide no longer. My will alone will determine how this trial ends. I wonder if Rathallan is still alive, like you said. I wouldn't be surprised. Despite everything, our kingdom's constitution still includes him in our government. Wait, really? As the savior of our kingdom, he was given an honorary position in our political hierarchy. His authority technically rivals that of the king. So that's why you're acting as the governor. You're the only person with the authority to convict any and all of the nobles here. Make no mistake, Mr. Cuthbert. I will remain in function regardless of what transpires here. I will not interfere in this trial, nor I will try to manipulate its outcome. I will only mediate its proceedings, and pass judgment when necessary. Well, that's certainly terrifying. Now then, with introductions out of the way, shall we proceed? Okay, I am going to take a look at my audio. Let's see. I do have two sources, so let me see here. I don't know if I can delete these. Okay, does this sound a little bit better to you? The prosecution is ready. Still me verbally? Okay. I'm wondering if maybe my microphone is picking up the speakers. I'm just gonna turn my lead sound down a little bit. Okay, does that sound a little bit better to you? The defense is also ready. So it's still the same. Alright, I honestly can't figure this out. One second. Okay, you're just gonna have to live with that. I don't know why this is happening, but obviously I messed something up and I can't figure out how to fix it, so you're just gonna have to live with it. I'm sure we're all thoroughly aware of why we gathered here. But for the sake of doing this properly, could you please list the charges against you? Of course, the defendant, Arya Steelwood, is charged with several counts of manslaughter. Her victims include many knights from Kingsguard who are still unresponsive. And of course, there's Lloyd von Sanctus and Coraline Sybil, the heads of House von Sanctus and House Sybil respectively. This is farce. This trial has been over before it began. Lady Steelwood clearly overestimated herself. Even a child knows to be very engaged. No, don't you see? This is Bahamut's judgment. The divine powers that be clearly think she is unfit to rule the king's side. Might I remind the board of my own testimony? I witnessed Beatrice Freyga enter the prayer room before I lost consciousness. Isn't it suspicious that this occurred around 15 minutes before Pierce's death?
Objection!
If I recall correctly, you only caught a glimpse of her. You don't know if it was someone else disguised in an illusion. You didn't even speak to her. That's all the more reason to call her to the stand to explain herself. She has already testified that she has no memories of what transpired during the massacre. There is no need to try this out any longer than necessary, Cuthbert. My client has a right to a fair trial, and Beatrice Freyga's involvement clearly implies some sort of foul play. Enough! I find Mr. Cuthbert's request to be reasonable, and I agree that Lady Freyga's actions are quite suspect. Very well, but the defense has that. I only hope for his sake that his blade speaks true. Why is everything a war metaphor with you? Beatrice! I'm glad you're safe, Mr. Cuthbert. Not for a lack of trying on your part. That wasn't what I have no memories of what I did. Ooh, we got a glitch there. If I heard you, I am truly sorry. She actually looks more sincere. But it's not as if this is the first time she's lied to me. To be honest, I'm still a little doubtful about your memories. I'm not the only one who experienced it. Arya also has no memories of what happened. And how would you know that? Word travels around quickly in the dungeons. And we had another glitch there. What? Regardless, if you truly have no memories of what happened, could you testify about what you do remember? Perhaps there's a clue there we have discovered. Very well. I was with my sisters and my guide, Eris and Ilmater. I was speaking with them in the garden when I suddenly felt ill and lost consciousness. When I woke up, my sisters found me. They said I had gone missing for over an hour. I was confused, But when I later heard what happened, I realized that someone must have taken control over my body. I have no memories of what happened, and from what I understand, the same thing happened to Arya. And to make matters worse, there's nothing that indicates who may have controlled her actions. So she's also saying that someone else was controlling her. Well, her testimony does match up with Arya's statement, but there's something off about the way she's testifying. If she were trying to lie to you, she would have been a lot more vague. What is she doing?
Objection!
Why would she say something like that? You found the contradiction, but it was almost like she gave it to you. Beatrice, you said there's no indication of who orchestrated this, but there is one piece of evidence that does just that, albeit loosely. And what would that be? This symbol. You pull out the parchment with the purple mark on it and show it to her. Maranoth, what are you doing? What's wrong? He's using his powers to suppress our connection. Magic? I can't actually see what you're trying to show me. Maranoth, can you stop being petty and just let her see it? I don't take orders from you, heavens born. I wonder, Mr. Cuthbert, what is on that parchment? You see, Beatrice, Arya has been investigating a string of murders throughout Wyverngard. These murders appear to be unrelated, despite how gruesome they are. But they all share one thing in common. This symbol was found at each and every crime scene.
Objection!
Don't tell me my daughters roped you into a little conspiracy theory. Your mind-control defense would be laughable if it weren't downright insulting. Lord Steelwood, during the gap in Arya's memory, someone placed this mark in her pocket. It was clearly some sort of taunt from whoever orchestrated this. Nonsense! She claimed to that symbol herself during her psychotic episode. I've had to listen to her go on and on about her insane theory. She was obsessed with it. Mr. Cuthbert, aren't you curious about what just happened? What are you talking about? Think about it. My apologies, I don't know why I said that. Is everything okay, Beatrice? Yes, I'm perfectly fine. Anyways, it looks like you'll have to get your rest now. What do you mean by that? There's nothing to figure out. Your Grace, these two are making a mockery of us by spouting these insane theories. The defense clearly has no case. End this at once. Considering what I know, I'd like to indulge this theory. What? The judge is finally giving you a chance for this. That's it first. You shouldn't waste this opportunity. You've actually been noticing it for quite a while. Beatrice has been acting strangely since the trial began. It's suspicious, but not in a way that seems to implicate her. It's almost like she's intentionally trying to make you realize something. Why don't you pull on this thread a little more? She just asked you if you were curious about what just happened. You're not sure why she stopped herself when you asked for elaboration. What event was Beatrice referring to? But whatever she's trying to draw your attention to must be significant. She's probably noticing the, sudden glitches too. Maranoth, he didn't allow Beatrice to see the purple mark. He'd only do that if Beatrice would recognize it normally. Why would Maranoth interfere? Maranoth is her familiar, and he used to follow her orders. But things have clearly changed now that she belongs to the Empress of Discord. So why would a demon like Maranoth interfere like this? The purple mark must be related to a demon somehow. That's the only explanation as to why he would prevent her from seeing the mark. But Arya has been investigating murders throughout Wyverngard. does this mean that her investigation also has something to do with the demon? Arya suspected that each of the murderers was acting against their will, and now both Arya and Beatrice are also claiming they were controlled. How could something demonic control Beatrice? You can't explain what happened to Arya and these other individuals, but you do know why Beatrice might not have full control of her actions. You recall what was written on Beatrice's contract during her trial. It said what would happen if she failed to claim House Freyga. Her soul, her mind, and her life would all be claimed by the Empress of Discord. What does this tell us about Arya? If this Empress of Discord owns Beatrice's mind, would that mean they could also control Beatrice against her will? But if that were true, no, that can't be right, can it? Did Arya seriously sign a blood contract with a demon? But why would she ever do that? But it's the conclusion that makes the most sense. You can't think of any other way someone could control her against her will. And there is one other way to find out for certain. The Divine Edict, that same ability you used against Beatrice during her trial. It was instinctual at the time, but you have some understanding of how it works. It creates a copy of a blood contract between a contract holder and the demon who created it. But for it to work, you need to know the name of the contract holder. In addition to that, you need the name of the demon who created the contract. Which demon did Arya make a blood contract with? Right now, you're only relying on guesswork. But going off of what you know, the demon who made the contract must be... No, Baranoth is constantly around Beatrice. Whoever made this contract with Arya probably made contracts with each of the murderers in this conspiracy. The purple mark must be some sort of symbol on that demon. And going off of what you've deduced so far, Beatrice would recognize that mark. The so-called Empress of Discord. She was mentioned in Beatrice's blood contract, but you still have no idea who or what she is. However, she was mentioned in a blood contract created by Maranoth. She must be his superior in some way. That might explain why Maranoth doesn't want Beatrice to identify the purple mark. You're not sure if a pseudonym is enough, but it's the closest you can get with what you know so far. You've been awfully quiet for a while, Mr. Cuthbert. What are you thinking about? He's probably imagining new ways to futilely stall for time. I think I've finally figured out why the witness and the defendant can't remember anything. And it would also explain why they didn't have control over their actions.
Objection!
Again with this? If you're so convinced of my daughter's conspiracy, why don't you prove it? I knew it. Even you don't believe in the nonsense you're spouting. Lord Steelwind, I want to be wrong about this. If I'm right, the implications don't bode well for anyone involved. So instead of telling you, I think it would be better to show you. Empress of Discord, wherever you may hide. Damn it, I knew you could do it. By the Eye of Horus, I issue upon you a divine edict. Release thy guards and manifest your blood contract with Arya Steelwind. The blood contract seems strange. Unlike Beatrice's contract, it's only one page. Even stranger, there's a large empty space at the top half of the page. There are only a few sentences at the bottom. For the intentions of this contract, the person who hands the contract to Arya Steelwind will be referred to as the patron. By signing this contract, Arya Steelwind surrenders her mind, body, and soul to the patron. This contract will bind Arya Steelwind to the patron so long as they both live. It's signed with Arya's signature. No! This can't be true. This is... Oh, so that's how he gets attention. Enough. Stop prowling amongst yourself.
Objection!
No, this is a sham! This wretch has clearly created a convincing fabrication. It's genuine, Lucio. It's impossible to falsify something like this. You can't deny the truth, Lord Stillwind. There is a way to control someone else's actions. Arya Stillwind wasn't affected by Mage Blood. She was controlled against her will. With this evidence, there's no doubt that Arya did sign a blood contract. But it still doesn't make sense. I agree. Even if Arya was the type of person to sign a contract with Demon, there isn't a single part of this contract that benefits her. Why would Arya sign this contract? Arya signed the contract because it looked like a normal document. There's a large empty space above the terms of your daughter's contract. When I issue a divine edict, it creates a copy of the blood contract that I called for. I think when she was given this contract, it probably looked like something entirely different. Something else was written in this empty space to make it look like a normal legal document, which means that my client was not in control of her actions that day.
Objection!
Enough of this, all of you! Do you see now, Lord Steelwind? Arya was not responsible for what happened. That remains to be proven. What are you talking about? She has a blood contract that relinquishes control of her free will. Not having control and not being responsible are two very different things, Cuthbert. What? I'll admit, the defendant may not have had control of her actions when she murdered the victims. However, she did have full control of herself when she signed this contract. Are you serious? No one in their right mind would willingly sign a contract like this. And what of Beatrice Frege? Was she in her right mind when she made a contract with the demon Maradov? Huh? If we can't hold the defendant responsible, surely we should also acquit Lady Frege for the murder of her father. That's hardly the same thing. I, for one, failed to see the difference. A fool made a deal with a demon, and as a result, several esteemed members of the nobility were killed. She's your daughter, Lucio. And how does that change anything? Damn it. He seriously doesn't care if he convicts Arya. Honestly, this only places more responsibility on her for what happened. I could have accepted if she had been reckless and accidentally induced mage blight. But to sign a contract with a demon? That only further espouses the need to put her down. She was clearly tricked, Lucio. Is that so? As a fellow attorney, would you really sign a contract without carefully inspecting it? Whether it was through foolishness, negligence, or both, the defendant willingly signed a blood contract. She compromised herself, and as a result, 3 nobles died. The responsibility falls squarely on her. Wait, even if she willingly signed that contract, that's not entirely true, is it? Who else was responsible for Arya's actions? Lucio, there's clearly someone else to blame for Arya's actions that day. Oh? And who would that be? I'd like to reread my client's blood contract to the court. By signing this contract, Arya Steelwind surrenders her mind, body, and soul to the patron. That can only mean one thing. Whoever this patron is, they took control of my client and used her to murder the victims. That's right! They could still be out there. None of us are safe until this patron is apprehended. Surely we can't end this trial while every member of the Wyvern Guard nobility is in danger. Well played. I'm compelled to agree with Mr. Cuthbert. Trickery or not, it's clear someone wished ill intent on the nobles. And until we know who this patron is, you can't pass judgment on my client. Not until we know the circumstances that she signed that blood contract under. And what would you have us do, Cuthbert? The contract has no stipulations about proximity or how this mind control works. For all we know, this patron could have murdered the victims all while sitting in their very home. There was a clear intent behind this attack. Even if the patron didn't directly participate in the murders, they definitely had a motive. If Arya was being controlled, then we can analyze her behavior to determine who was controlling her. I see. That does sound as good a plan as any. At the very least, we can't allow this patron to escape justice. Despite the questions raised, we've clearly made some headway. I believe we should take a brief recess to process these revelations. Very well. Alright, we are going to end things off for tonight. And let's see who is streaming. Oh, let's see here. Why don't we raid Shellshock Prime, who's playing Final Fantasy IV Pixel Remaster, I believe? Alright, everybody, thank you very much. And we will next be streaming on Thursday night. Hopefully we will be finishing this up. I don't know, but we can certainly try it, and hopefully my audio problems will be fixed by then. So, in any case, this has been Jewelry Jelly with Lily, and can't forget George Washing Machine. And until we meet again, may all of your tea times be perfect.